Hi YouTube, my name is Jane-Beata and I create watercolor paintings. Today I want to share with you process of my latest painting. So I prepared a sketch and then I transferred it onto a watercolor paper using my light table. I used a very smooth paper for this painting. Hot pressed or smooth watercolor paper is the worst possible kind to work on with watercolor, because since the paper has no texture, no tooth, and it is insanely hard to control water on it. So you'll see me struggling with it later. For the first layer I used the wet on wet approach, so I covered the whole paper with water and just ran some paints through the whole paper. Typically with watercolor you want to apply the approach from light to dark, so that's what I did. Gradually increase the saturation of my paints layer by layer. For the purple circle around his head I used Daniel Smith paints. I really love Moonglow. You might be familiar with it. That's one of my favorite paints to use. It has a very interesting granulating effect. On top of it I added some magenta, and then finally I used my favorite effect, and that is adding just a bit of alcohol into the wet paint, and you'll see what happens. These drops of alcohol create a light zone within the wet paint, and when it dries it looks really nice. It's a very interesting effect to use. You don't have to completely rely on this effect when using watercolor, but it is a very nice addition, and it would be a shame not to use them, so I myself want to use them much more often. I struggled with his face so much. I don't know if it was the paper or if it was me not focusing completely, but I am not satisfied at all in how I handled the face. I applied the usual wet on wet approach, going for the smooth skin the way I do normally, but I think I misplaced the colors, and then the whole shading of the face, it wasn't very three-dimensional, and the paint just ran everywhere, and wasn't great. Another thing I noticed with this kind of paper is that the paint dried out quite dull, so it wasn't very saturated. I used the same light to dark approach when painting details of the face, such as eyes, nose and lips also, and then I added even darker colors to just make the details stand out more. Still, after numerous adjustments, I still wasn't happy with the face features, but there is nothing much that you can do after you mess up watercolor, so I'll just have to deal with how it turned out. In the end, I decided to add a bit of Freckles, and then I started to like this guy a bit more. I always like face a bit more with Freckles, I don't know why is that. I plan to use numerous different effects for his shirt, but they didn't turn out quite well because the paper didn't want to cooperate. This kind of paper, as I noticed, is really good maybe for mixing media, for using color pencils on top, but it's not very good for effects. I would grab a different paper next time when I want to achieve more visually interesting and intense effect. And then finally my favorite part was adding highlights. Lucky for me that I had these new gel pens from I think Sakura, Japan, because they are the first gel pens that I ever bought that actually work, and so I didn't have to use the dip pen and ink. It was quite quick, and whiting always just gives an extra spark to a watercolor painting once it's finished. So I added a couple of lines and then color pencils on top, and it already looked so much nicer than before. final effect that I used was just a bit of metallic watercolor, and that was it. In conclusion, even though I wasn't happy with the painting as much, I don't think it turned out all that bad. So I would really appreciate if you let me know what you think about it. Maybe how would you improve it if you were the author. And I'd also like to know if you like to plan ahead your painting composition or if you improvise, and which way works better for you. So please share your experience with me in the comments below and I'll get back to you. So I'll see you in my next video.